Hello and welcome to the Maine Take. My name is Dana Connors and I'm pleased to be the host of this weekly program brought to you by the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. On each program, with the help of our guests, of course, we take a look at the issues, the initiatives, and some of the ideas at work in our state to help improve the lives and the livelihood of Maine people, but also to grow our economy. And the program today really features two professionals whose work goes far in meeting the test that we just described. I repeat, helping our people, but also growing our economy. Our two guests are Colleen Quint, President and CEO of the Alphon Scholarship Foundation, and Bill Harwood, who is the state's public advocate, and I am pleased to welcome both of them to our show today. I have known you both for a period of time, both personally, but also in terms of following your career. And may I say at the outset, I have tremendous respect and admiration for who you are, but also for what you are doing for our people and our economy. I begin today with Colleen. Colleen, as I said, is the president and CEO of the Alfond Scholarship Foundation. That is the foundation from which our program that deals with a grant to every child that's born in our state, that's a Maine resident, which is our feature for today. But you should know also that her life has been pretty much, in career terms, founded on education. She is a former founding executive director of the Senator George Mitchell Scholarship Research Institute that we've all known and appreciated over the years, but she also has trained and is an attorney in which she specialized in educational issues and probably did a lot for education while she was Assistant Attorney General. So welcome, Colleen. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And I do want to jump right into this program that I quickly referenced, which is my Alphon grant program. I think I said that correct. And I do want to talk about how it got started, but let's begin at the beginning, as they say, and share with us what is the significance of that grant program? What does it do?
Yeah, thanks, Dana. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So the Alphon Grant Program is a really special and unique opportunity for Maine families. We invest $500 at birth for every Maine resident baby. The program began in 2008 on a pilot basis. We expanded statewide in 2009 for what we called an opt-in model, where families who opened a NextGen account, which is Maine's 529 or college savings plan, they open an account by the child's first birthday. They received an Alphon grant. But since January 1 of 2013, every baby born a Maine resident now automatically receives the grant. So we've invested over $65 million for over 130,000 Maine children so far.
Well, that's remarkable. When you think about this began at 2013, when it really reached every birth of a Maine child, that's a significant investment that really begins that savings that's so significant later on. It probably is taken for granted at birth, but boy, it sure pays dividends. I want to talk about it. Is that it seems to me that in doing the research for what you have been able to accomplish, you in many ways have been a model, because I've read where other states, maybe they don't give the same level of gift, meaning $500 for a child, but it's been a model for other states. Can you speak to that as well?
Oh, sure. It really has been such an incredible thing to be part of, Dana. So the program we have here in Maine really has inspired dozens of programs across the country, and it has been a model for some of them. So there are now well over 100 programs like this in 36 different states. As you say, not everybody does the $500 that we're able to do here in Maine through the generous contribution of the Harold Alfond Foundation. But the idea is to have something that is investing in children at birth, or sometimes it's at kindergarten in some programs, but very early in life, to really have the practical as well as aspirational benefits that come from that early investment. There's a researcher in the field, Willie Elliott, who's a professor at the University of Michigan, and he talks about it as hope in tangible form, which I think is just a really wonderful way of capturing what this is really all about.
Boy, it sure is. I'm also struck by the fact that there's yourself plus one other person, and you do extensive work, and the results are pretty obvious for those who have the good fortune of participating. But a lot of your work depends on partners, and I know that FAME plays a critical role in that. And I know that there are some businesses that, and even then, the business participation has grown quite a bit from 2021 or whatever the year that I looked at that was, you began to measure it. So talk about those partnerships, each of them, because I think that I think that it shows how you've been able to reach out to other groups to try to build on the momentum of this incredible program.
Yeah, absolutely, Dana. And as you say, we are a two-person staff. So I like to say there are two of us and 130,000 babies. So we are by definition going to be what's called in the field as a low-touch model. But it does not mean that we're not really working hard to have a significant impact on families. So we work around awareness and engagement with families and aspirations for students. So we work in partnership with hospitals, with the Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services, Head Start programs, family serving organizations all over the state. FAME is a special partner for us. The Finance Authority of Maine, they help to administer the program. So they do the really heavy lifting, and they do a phenomenal job for us of identifying and tracking the children who have the Alphon grant. All the funds are invested in a NextGen account that's owned by ASF. And so FAME helps us track all those babies. If families open their own NextGen account, we link it to an Alphon, to their Alphon grant. And they do a lot of work with us in helping to communicate with families about the current value of the grant and making sure that particularly in the first year, families have a lot of good information about it. The business partners are really an exciting opportunity and a real strong area of focus for us right now, especially. You know, we've had the program for a couple of years, and you know, with the pandemic and all the different pressures and expectations and needs that were being met, we just kind of pulled back for a little bit in the outreach, but we're really redoubling that effort now with the help of FAME, and we've had great results. So when I talk about a business partner, what I'm really meaning is an employer. I say business, but of course it includes nonprofits and, you know, institutions like colleges and universities and hospitals. So it's an employer who does a number of things with us to raise awareness of the Alphon grant among their employees. They'll have employees who have children or maybe grandchildren with an Alphon grant, and we want to make sure they know about that. But in particular, we're really focused on encouraging businesses to offer payroll deduction so that their employees can, just like they make an automated contribution to a retirement account, can do the same into a NextGen account that they open and can then contribute again to a child or grandchild's future education. And we had about 25 or so employers at the end of 21, and we're pretty close to doubling that already in the first quarter of 2022.
Oh, that's incredible. So really, I mean, we are all familiar with the debt of students today and how that really does discourage some. So what you've created here, not only a down payment of significance in the $500, but it sounds to me like you've created a path forward where families can continue to contribute either to the employer or taking advantage of the program that FAME has. What did you call it? NextGen 529 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is that an accurate statement? Because as generous as 500 is, it doesn't meet the test of today's educational costs. So you have set up a mechanism to address that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's very foundational to how the program was envisioned by Mr. Alfond from the very beginning. You know, you knew Mr. Alfond, so you know he was somebody who wanted to do his part and wanted others to do their part in return, right? And so the idea of the program is that we're making this significant investment, and we're working with partners and families we include in the mix as folks that we consider as partners to really encourage them to take the step of opening their own account. And they can open any kind of an account they want to. There's not a requirement about what kind of account to open. Different things work for different families. But if they open a next gen account, then we're able to link it. They're eligible for matching grants from FAME, et cetera. And that notion of family savings is something that's very, very important to us. The idea is that we know that the grant has, like I said before, Dana, both that practical as well as aspirational benefit. And when families are able, even, and our research shows that even moderate and low income families, even vulnerable families, not only want to support their child's future education, but actually take the steps of opening accounts and saving in really, really extraordinary ways. And that literal investment, that financial investment they're making in their child's future is also that emotional investment, or that I believe in my child's future. I want my child to have the opportunity that comes with education after high school. And when we talk to parents, that's what they tell us. We send every quarter, we send a communication that shows the current value of the Alphon grant. That $500 might be worth $824.13 in the market today, depending on what the stock market is doing. If families have a next gen account, we can show the contributions there as well as matching grants and the total available for their child. But what they tell us when they get that and they see their child's name and the dollar amount is not only the affirmation that this is real money invested for my child's future, but the additional boost that comes from somebody believes in my child, somebody wants my child to have that kind of opportunity. And that gives parents incredible confidence and belief in their ability to then help make that happen for their children.
Oh, my Lord, well stated. It brings to mind how inspirational and forward-thinking, among other positive words, that Harold Alfond really was. What a generous man, what an incredible one in a million type of people that had such wealth but was willing to share it, but did the smart thing by saying, I'm going to participate, but there's a role for you too. It was a genius that has paid off in so many ways. You look around the state, whether in just about every aspect of education, he has made an investment. Just a remarkable person.
Absolutely. And this Alphon grant program really is his legacy gift to the state of Maine that will benefit the state for generations to come. We talked before about the impact on individual students and the opportunity that education brings, but the future prosperity of Maine through a more educated workforce was absolutely his vision for the program. And one of the things that we'll be tracking over the next few years, as the oldest of our students are in 7th, 8th grade right now. So a few years from now, they'll be in high school and then leaving high school to go on to all kinds of post-secondary education. And when they do that, we're going to be really watching carefully to see whether we feel that the Alphon grant is having an impact on the percentage of high school students who continue their education, because students who might not have thought of it before, who might not have thought it was within reach financially, maybe now are going to think differently and take that step. And importantly, we also give students until age 28 to use the Alphon grant, because not everybody continues education that fall after they get their high school diploma.
That's remarkable. I think you've just touched upon it, but I'd ask you to expand if you would. And that is, your mission is clearly not complete. I know you well enough to know there are other things that you're pursuing. Share with us some of those ideas or things that you would like to see accomplished.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think that, we're, as you know, and you and I have known each other for a long time, Dana, my last 20 years here in Maine has really been focused on opportunity for Maine kids through access to higher education, first at the Mitchell Institute and now here with Alfond. And so that really remains the thing that gets me out of bed every morning. That's the piece that I'm really focused on. And so we're developing online tools and resources for families that promote aspirations for kids and career exploration. We have some programs now for kids in kindergarten and pre-K through grade 2. We have something for middle school. We're excited to look ahead to develop things for high school students where we can even begin to engage a little more directly with the students themselves as they get older. I think working in partnership with the post-secondary institutions in the state to really make sure that they help get the word out and that as the students with an Alphon grant are coming to their institutions, and by the way, to be clear, they're not limited to going to college in Maine. They can pursue degrees anywhere. It's not limited to being used in the state of Maine, but we certainly hope a lot of students will do that. So we have, we're looking forward to developing even more rich and robust partnerships with the post-secondary institutions in the state. I think the opportunities to, as we talked about a minute ago, to work with business partners to really embed this in such a way that when a new employee comes on board and they sign them up for their 401k, they sign them up to do payroll deduction for college savings. Working with like the Department of Health and Human Services and Head Start programs to, again, really embed information about the Alphon grant into their intake processes, so that particularly our most vulnerable families know about this resource, that this money is there for their child, that this hope is there, that we believe in their child's future and all the power that comes from that. So those are the kinds of things that we're really excited about. And when we are a statewide program, automatic, universal at birth, every baby born a Maine resident has this. We have the ability to really embed the program into all the places that touch families and work with children.
So if somebody wanted to get more information, they may have seen this program, heard this program, and heard your passion for this and said, wow, that's inspirational. I need to find out more. How would they do that?
The best thing to do would be to go to our website, myalphongrant.org. There's all kinds of information there. My email is right on there under the contact section. I encourage anybody who with questions or interested in learning more just to reach out to me directly. I'm always happy to talk with folks about the program. I spend a fair amount of time talking with folks in other states who are looking to build programs like this. I just had outreach the other day from somebody in Pennsylvania and somebody in Oregon. So that we really are leading the nation in a lot of ways. But here in Maine, that's obviously where our focus is, and being available to folks to answer questions and provide information and to find new partners. We're always looking for new ways to partner with folks here in the state and are really excited about doing that. So the website's the easy starting point, and there's information there about the Business Partners program that we talked about, as well as information about the program itself.
Well, I must say, Colleen, that your passion for what you do is unquestionable. It's infectious, as a matter of fact. And, in speaking a number of times throughout the state over the years, in my only 3 jobs, but there's one thing that unites all people in the state, and regardless of where you live, what you do, or your politics, and that is you want a strong economy and you want to serve your people. And when you think about that, you say to yourself, what does that have to do with education? The truth is, it has everything to do with education. Yep. And you bring that forward in spades by investing in our very youngest possible people. We know how important early childhood care and education is, and you put a spotlight on that and place an emphasis that it's hard to deny. So we thank you for all that you're doing, and keep up the good work, my friend.
That's great. It's my great pleasure and honor to do this, for sure. Thanks for having me, Dana.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Also have another very special guest, Bill Harwood, who's also doing great work. Bill came to the office that he now has in January of 22 to be our public advocate. He was a very popular choice. He was unanimously recommended by the Committee of Jurisdiction as well as by the Senate. And just a few months before that, he was brought out of private practice, to serve as a senior advisor for regulatory affairs to the governor's energy office. And before that, he was a senior counsel at Beryl Dana for over 4 decades. It's hard to believe, Bill, because you look so young. You sure that's correct? 4 decades? It seems impossible. And even then, you were in utility, energy, and regulation. So a remarkable career. Great to have you on board. I have to ask the first, perhaps obvious question is, you stepped away from a practice in which you had distinguished yourself. You were very successful, and you chose to come to be in public service on an area that you were pursuing in the private sector. Tell me more about that, the motivation behind that.
Yeah, thanks, Dana, and thank you for having me and those kind words. This is a great opportunity, and it's a great privilege for me to serve the people of Maine in this position. As you said, I had 40 years of training for this job as a lawyer in private practice. I got to see a lot of our energy policy and our utility regulation policy. And so I sort of had two choices. I could wind down my practice and drift off into the sunset in retirement, or I could take a detour and offer my services to the Mills administration and say, if I can be of help, I'd love to do it for a few years. And fortunately, I was given that opportunity. And as I say, I'm humbled and privileged to represent the ratepayers of Maine today as their advocate before the legislature and the PUC.
Yeah, tell for those who probably think they know about what the public advocate's job is, and you touched upon it right there in your response, but speak to that more. Your role, your responsibility as public advocate, how would you describe that?
Yeah, the Office of Public Advocate is a very small department or division of state government. There are 9 of us, 9 hardworking, smart professionals, and our job is to represent the ratepayers of Maine in regard to their public utilities. That's the electric, natural gas, water, and telephone. And wherever they need representation before the Maine Public Utilities Commission, the legislature, occasionally in Washington before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, we are constantly looking out for their interests, making sure that those utility services are affordable. It's really important that we keep our eye on the affordability of utility services. These are essential services. People don't have a choice. And whether they're a low-income elderly ratepayer who are living on a fixed income, or a large paper mill employing Maine employees, or a rural grocery store hanging on by a thread, in every case, we need to make sure that those utility services are affordable so that they aren't driven to make tough choices because of the size of their utility bills.
Bill Harwood, let me say this: you are the perfect choice at the perfect time. When the term is used, you came into this role on baptism by fire. They knew what they were talking about, and it applies because on the agenda before the legislature and the PUC today, there are some incredible issues, whether it's what you just described, renewable, whether it's energy delivery, whether it's broadband, you name it. Not only are there a lot of issues, they're controversial issues to a large degree, can be quite divisive. What is your vision? How do you approach that, knowing that it is pretty all-consuming and time-wise as well as otherwise?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I'm still learning. I've just finished my 2nd month on the job, and I've got still a lot more to learn. It was hard enough 5 or 10 years ago to make sure that we held the utilities accountable, their services were affordable, and they met a minimum service standard, because of course there's no choice. You can't pick a competitor of Central Maine Power or Versant. You're stuck with the utility. So affordability and service were the keys. Now we've added a 3rd leg to that stool, climate change, and the need for more renewables, the need to wean ourselves off of fossil fuel. And to get that right is really challenging. We got to make sure we don't price the services out of their range of affordable service. And yet we really do have a job. We send $4 billion a year out of state for oil and gas, and we can do better than that. We need to promote wind, solar, and hydro, particularly here in Maine, to make sure that we are getting ready for the future and protecting this climate and our coastal part of Maine from the ravages of climate change.
Yeah, again, this is my opinion, not necessarily yours, or probably not the majority, but so often in the last few years, we've seen some very, very important issues, controversial issues appear on a referendum where it's hard to have the type of discussion, debate, and even understanding, because sound bites, depending on how much money you raise, tend to be the measure. And again, I know this is personal, but it is troubling, because right now you are setting the stage for the future when it comes to energy and utilities, and it has to be deliberative, thoughtful, understanding. And like I said, I'm glad you're in that position, because I've got the confidence that you're going to help make that a reality and not get reduced to quick sound bites or something that can haunt us in years to come.
Yeah, thank you. I think you've put your finger on one of the real challenges of getting the policy right. There is a tendency, because it is so complicated and so technical, the engineering, the legal, the financial are all critical pieces of this, that it tends to be a very small group who make these decisions, and yet they have a tremendous impact on the public. So one of the challenges of this office is to be able to bring the public into the process as much as possible, communicate with the public, report to the public. I'm trained as, after 40 years in private practice, as a lawyer, that my client is the king, and I do everything that my client wants me to do. I try and achieve their goals. In this case, my clients are the people of Maine, the ratepayers of Maine who purchase those utility services. And it's really important for me to connect to them. And this show is an opportunity, and I'm looking for other opportunities, because I need to know what their concerns are and what their perceptions are. And I need to let them know what I'm doing in front of the PUC and the legislature on their behalf to essentially get away from that referendum process, bring the public in, but still let the experts at the PUC and others do their job.
Yeah, that statement is very reassuring, and I hope people hear it, see it, and clearly understand it, because it is so important. Let me move to another issue with the time that we have left, and that is a few years ago, we saw broadband as being important, but today we see it as something essential. A few years ago, when we got our first down payment of 15 million, we all patted each other's back and said, great. Now we have 250 million plus. We have a goal of trying to have everybody wired by 2024. I know you've played an important role in what that all means and how we go forward. Broadband's essential. Speak to your role in that, and what do you see?
Yeah, it is essential. We've got to do better, and we've got to find the dollars and find the investment to be able to do that. As your viewers may know, broadband is not a regulated utility before the PUC, so it's a little bit of a hybrid. It sort of is a little bit, but there are still many opportunities for those of us in the utility regulatory world to support broadband. At the very least, if all the poles and wires that go up and down the highways and streets of this state are available for broadband, that's important. And we need to make sure that they're available, and that those broadband wires can go on those poles and get to those tough to serve remote communities. So there's an important role for the utilities to be there to help and support this. And we're going to try and do whatever we can, but it's going to take some time and money to get there, but we got to do it if we're going to make this state competitive in the future.
Boy, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the pandemic and people staying at home, working remotely has brought that front and center. At the same time, you see a debate taking place, all well intended. So I don't want to come across in the wrong way, but the role of municipalities versus the private sector, they should be compatible, and we hope they will work together in that respect. But when something like this gets backed by the dollars that make it possible, those issues have to be sorted out in order to do the right thing for as many people as possible. And I think that too becomes a challenge at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dana. This has got to be a partnership, not a competition. There's a lot of people who can contribute to this, both inside government and outside government. And instead of stepping on each other's toes or getting into a competitive spirit, we got to find a way to get us all pushing in the same direction. I believe we all have the same goals, and we just need to make sure that we're all doing our fair share and doing our part.
Bill, as we wrap up this part, is there anything that you'd like to share that I may not have addressed or asked of you? The floor is yours.
Well, let me just say thank you for the leadership of the state chamber on these issues. That's really important. Your team there is there in the legislature and the PUC, and I really appreciate it. And I want all of the listeners to this, particularly the business, small business, to feel that, don't hesitate to call me and call the Office of Public Advocate. We are your representatives. We are your lawyers at the PUC. And if you have questions, concerns, frustrations over the recent increases, please let us know, and we will do what we can to represent you. And if we can, find ways to help modify and make the utility services affordable so that you can continue to succeed in your business.
Well, let me say, for those who are listening, I hope you take stock of what's been said, because you do have a friend and a very strong advocate in Bill Harwood doing his work on your behalf, and you couldn't find anybody better. And I thank you for being on the show, and I thank you for the position that you hold. We look forward to it. Yeah.
Thank you, Dana. Have a great day.
Thank you. Well, the takeaway for this week leaves me more than a little humbled, because today's program really did focus on the commitment and the hard work, the serious work of two professionals and what they do. Both are attorneys. One is focused on education and the other is focused on energy and utilities. And I must say the importance and the impact of their programs, their efforts on the lives and the livelihood of our people, not to mention our economy, should never be undervalued or overstated. Their work is vital to our people and to our economy. And if I say it twice, I won't have said it enough. That's how important it is. Colleen brought to light how my Alphon grant program plays such a critical beginning, the start and the success of our youngest, by investing a $500 gift at the time of their birth to go towards their future education beyond high school. Think what she said. In 2022, from 2013, essentially when they really formally kicked it off for every child born, it's $65 million that has gone to 130,000 children. That's remarkable. But the story doesn't end there. As a matter of fact, by the partnerships that the two of them have established throughout the state, that pathway creates and has created a way that allows and encourages investments to continue to be made for that youngster's future. We're all aware of how troubling student debt is today, and here's a way that with the help of FAME and their program, with the help of business communities and payroll reduction, that work can continue. So student debt as a barrier, as a challenge, can be minimized by what you have here today, by the work of Colleen and the program and the foresight, the vision of Harold Alfond. Yeah, that investment will help lead that student to success. It'll also address the workforce challenge that we experience today, that programs like this will help to address in the days ahead. Bill Harwood was our other guest on today's program, an outstanding attorney with experience, with skill, and remarkable success. But as you heard him say, he stepped away from practicing law in the private sector, where he specialized in the very issues that he is now dealing with as public advocate, utility and energy, to take a position in the administration at a time when you could not begin to have a more serious and needed discussion around energy, around utilities, around climate change, around broadband. His role as public advocate is to be the voice for the consumer, as he said, in the areas that I've just described. It's an extremely important position that carries with it a responsibility intended to serve the interests of Maine people and help build our economy for the future, particularly when you consider the issues that are before the legislature today that involve the PUC, that are tough decisions, that we want them to be made with thorough discussion, understanding, debate, and the things that go into making decisions in the best interests of today, but certainly tomorrow as well. Yeah, they were two very special people doing very special work. And I used to be a Rotarian at once when I was in Presque Isle as a city manager. I'll always remember these words because they apply to our two guests today. Service above self. Both have displayed and are displaying service above self for the purpose of helping our people and our state. I can say this with sincerity, although it sounds very inadequate, and I know it to be because of how I feel about the two people we've interviewed today and the work that they're doing. But I will say, with appreciation and applause, I thank you. You are doing God's work, and that we are very grateful for. That is the main take for this week. It's been my pleasure to interview two very special people in the work that they do. But between now and next week, remember this: in a world where you can be anything, be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here in a week's time. Stay safe, be strong. Take care. Bye-bye.